Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tatiana. I'm a business coach and mentor for women wanting to start their own stationery businesses. Welcome. I'm excited for today's topic. I know I say that all the time, but it's just because we're talking about a really just fun subject around creating your own planners, and this has just been really fun, or creating your own journal. And I specifically wanted to talk today about just 5 things that I would have done differently, or I wish I would have known before I did my own handmade planner. So this will be really interesting for you, especially if you're thinking about doing a planner or a journal this year, and just some things to consider and think about. Some of them might just be kind of like, well, duh, why didn't you think that? And other ones it might be like, oh. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And if you are thinking about creating a planner or journal this year, let me know down below. Share a little bit more about maybe the type you're trying to create, so we can just kind of see what everybody's working on. So I wanted to talk today about some of the things I wish I would have known or did differently, because that way it can help you avoid those issues. So the first one is a little bit more specific to, well, they're all going to be specific to me, but this was really specific to my situation. And I've talked a lot about this previously, just in sharing my story of how my planner came to be. But really the first one is just that time is of the essence, okay? And I wasted a lot of time just thinking about it, a lot of time just talking myself out of it, focusing on the failures, the setbacks and things I had had previously. And all of that could have been time of me learning about how to do it, perfecting the process, launching it, getting it out there. And I could have already been on like my 3rd or 4th year of doing my planner. And so I think sometimes, you know, we talk ourselves out of doing stuff, and I get it. It's real, it happens. I am right there with you, because that was me all day. But that's one of the biggest things that I really wish that I would have changed, is just not wasting so much time just sitting there making excuses, doubting myself. And when I look back, I'm like, but all for what? That time could have been used in such a more valuable way for me, but instead I really feel like I wasted it just kind of what-ifing through everything and just thinking about what had already happened before. And it kind of caused me to just really pause in the growth of my business, because I was just too busy talking myself out of it. So that's definitely a big one. And I think if you have found yourself doing that, or if it's already been several months or years, I just encourage you to just do it. Just do it. Don't make the excuses. Just stop. Just we got to be tough on ourselves sometimes, because if we don't, we'll just continue to keep thinking, and another year will pass and so on, and we will just be like, what am I doing here? And you're watching everybody else doing it, and it's like, okay, if she can do it coming from, you know, nothing, or coming from limited funds, or maybe not the best situation, if that person can do it, why can't you? All right, so I got my little notes here so that I can remember what I'm talking about. So number 2 is definitely going to be open to it being different than what you originally thought, and shifting, or being able to just pivot a little bit quicker. So I told my story about kind of how I had a different vision for what I thought the planner was going to look like. Like I had a whole different vision. I wanted it to be a flat lay type of style, and it just obviously is not that. It's way different. And so I took a second to really be like, okay, no, I want it this way. And that almost was enough for me to not do it. And I ended up, you know, finally being like, no, I said I was going to do this. I'm going to make it happen, and pivot. But being open to the fact that you may not be able to get every single detail you want right in the beginning, and just knowing that that is okay. I look at it myself as just, now that gives me something to work up towards. It gives me something to work to. But in the meantime, I'm still going to do my best in this season, and I'm going to take it for what it is, learn from it, perfect it, make it amazing. And then when I finally have an opportunity to, even if I still even want to do that, I can do that at that point. But that's really a huge, I would say, just lesson I really took away from that, is that be open to pivoting and changing. And that's just throughout entrepreneurship in general, because you can envision something one way, but then when you start to really get into it and you see, okay, this is not really working out how I thought, being able to shift and just kind of make those changes is going to help you out so much. So I ended up deciding to go handmade, which originally I wasn't going to do that. I was going to get a company to make it. And so it was a whole just issue within myself that I had to get past, of what I thought, how I was picturing it, and then kind of having to shift gears. And so let's just say, for example, for you, like if there's specific details you're really looking for that you want. Like maybe you want to have a pin loop or something, you know, on your journal, and you are starting to realize maybe you're not going to be able to get it made by a company, just using it just to kind of keep it in line with my situation. And then you also are like, well, I still want this pin loop. There's adhesive pin loops on Amazon. So you can always purchase those and just stick it on the back. Is it gonna be as beautiful or exactly what you thought? No. Is it serving its purpose, and does it still look quality? Yes. So I think sometimes you have to kind of be willing to shift gears, make changes, just because sometimes things cost. Anything you want, you can get made. I will always say that there's never anything that you cannot have. It's just sometimes, are you prepared to make the investment, or prepared to wait, or whatever the case may be. But there's always a manufacturer out there that can do exactly what you want to do. So it's always kind of like a toss-up, you know, to where you might have to wait a little bit longer till you can maybe save up to get to what you want to do. Like if you really just, you don't want to make any changes and you want it to be exactly that way, be more open to investing a bit more money, whether you invest in the equipment for yourself to make it, or you work with a company that makes it, or you have to get several of them, or whatever the case may be. Just be open regardless to just pivoting, making changes, and realizing that it's just not all going to flow exactly the way that you kind of have it in your head right now, and that's okay. So the third one is one that I actually shared with you guys in a previous video. This one I'm still upset with, mainly because people had received my planner with this mistake, but by the grace of God, it was not a huge deal for pretty much anybody, except it only really ended up being like one customer. But I did share about this. So when I first started doing my planner, I had everything perfected. I had worked on it. I was so confident about it. And I really took my time with it, as you should, you know, when you're really trying to get things to be the best quality. And I was putting the coil on the wrong way. Yeah, I was putting it on backwards. So when you would open up the planner, I actually have one of them here that I can show you guys. And I actually talk about this in my Handmade Planner Masterclass course, because this is a biggie, because I had actually looked at a lot of other planners and things that I already had, and so I don't know how I missed this. This was one of those things where I was just beating myself up, because I'm like, well, how did you miss this detail, right? So here's a planner that I have, and if I go to the very back of it, and this is just specifically for the wire O binding style, by the way. If you're doing spiral or something like that, that's a whole different type of situation. But as you can see, it has these little openings right here. So these openings are open a lot wider until you clamp them down in the binding machine. And so this is actually my back cover right here, and this is the last page of the planner. So if you look and see, this little kind of like, I could kind of refer to this side as like the bigger part, and then these are like the little teeth, is what I kind of think of it as. These teeth should always be here next to the back cover. I was putting it on flipped, so the teeth were over here and these bigger parts, as I call it, were over here. So what was happening is, depending on if it was binded tightly enough, the pages could slip out of the teeth. And so that was a complaint that was had. In addition to, it's a thicker planner, and so at the time when I made it, I had tested it out. I had been using it for a long time, and I felt like the size of the coil that I had was more than enough, and so I went with it. And one thing I wish I would have changed would have been a larger coil, but that was something that I really wouldn't have known, you know, until really using it, getting it out there, and then just seeing what other people thought. And so I guess the biggest thing, there's kind of two parts to it. I definitely wish I would have probably looked a little bit more closely into the way that I was putting the coil on, but you live and you learn, right? And now I know, and that's not something that I have done moving forward, of course. But also that just being open to the fact that there's going to be something that you got to change. And sometimes it can be hard to accept criticism, especially when you really put your heart and soul into something and you try to give somebody your 100% best quality, but there still may be that thing where people are just like, okay, well, this is an issue or this is the problem. And so I just want to just, even as just a side note, just say that mistakes happen, and do not beat yourself up about it. Do not feel like, okay, this is it, it's over for me. Just look at it like a fresh start of like, okay, well, now I know, now I'm aware. Or, you know, maybe you realize, okay, that's great, but I think I'm gonna continue doing it this way. If it's a situation where maybe it's just one person and it's not even about a quality or a usage issue, but it's just like, for example, someone told me in a feedback survey that they didn't understand why I put a sticker sheet in there, and they wished that I didn't sell it with a sticker sheet. So that's feedback where I'm like, okay, I can kind of see, you know, of course, if you're not a sticker user, you may feel like, okay, that's a waste, I don't need that. But for the majority of my customers, they love stickers and they love that in there. So that's not something that I would change, but I 100% appreciate that feedback. So that's an example of just knowing that you're going to get feedback from people, and I encourage you to get feedback from people. You want to know what you can improve on and how you can make it better, because that really makes you a company that cares about your customers and wanting to give them the best possible product. So yes, that was number 3. So another thing that I wish I would have done differently was how I did my pre-orders. So I've shared before that I was very nervous to put this planner out there. I was still in my head a lot, and part of that, I also was very, what's even the right word? I gave myself a very small amount of what I wanted to sell. So I did that because I wanted to play it safe. I was like, I'm not getting ready to pay money. You know, I'm not getting ready to buy 200 of these things, for example. I'm not gonna buy 200 of these to then have 4 people get it. Like, that was the mindset that I went into it with. And I just wish that I would have been a lot more open to the process, because what ended up happening is I ordered so few the first time that I then messed myself up because so many people wanted them and I didn't have enough, and I had to wait to get more, and it just really prolonged the process a lot more. And this actually kind of goes hand in hand with my other point as well, so I just kind of looped them in together. It's just the procrastination of it all as well. So on top of me kind of counting myself out of being able to really sell like a large amount, I also procrastinated. So it's like when I did finally get everything, and this was even before anyone had placed an order yet, I had my pages for the planner. They were sitting here because I get them cut down and printed by another company. They were just sitting here in boxes, and I would just look at them and I'd be like, oh, okay, they're here. But I had this thing in my head where I was just like, well, I don't want to start punching them if nobody, you know, if anyone really isn't going to purchase it. And I still had that mindset. And so I procrastinated out of fear, out of the unknown, out of just being scared that it would do well, but then also that it wouldn't. And I just let the boxes sit there and stare at me. Until then finally orders start coming in. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get started. Like, don't be that. Don't do that. Okay. Don't wait until the last minute. Don't let procrastination, which sometimes really can be masked as your fear underneath, don't let that stop you, because then you can have a quicker turnaround time. You can get things out faster. You can set yourself up to not feel overwhelmed, which is exactly what I do to myself. Time and time again, I get in my head and I'm just like, for whatever reason, I let fear turn into procrastination. And so I always deliver and do what I'm supposed to do. But in turn, it ends up making it more stressful for me. Instead of me setting myself up, I could have been punching pages leading up to the pre-order date and all of these different things. But it was just because I was so in my head, I just allowed the time to go by. And it's just something that I wish I would have done differently, and something that I think was a really big lesson is just doing things ahead of time, even though it can be scary to be like, oh my gosh, is anyone gonna purchase this? All right, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I also wanted to remind you, I do have a really fun challenge. It's called the Ideas to Reality Challenge. taking place February 8th through the 10th. If you are interested in creating your own planner or journal this year and you're wanting to just get the next steps of how to get it out of your head and kind of turn it into a concept so that it's ready to design and create, you definitely want to be a part of this challenge. It's free. Click the link down below to read a little bit more about it. See if you're interested, sign up, and hopefully I will see you there. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope that some of these tips and just lessons and things that I wish I would have done differently help you just in your thought process overall when you are planning out your planner, your journal launch. It definitely has so many moving parts involved, and it is so much mindset, so much just planning and organization and just trying to stay on top of stuff. So I'm really trying to just cover all of the different bases. If you have any specific questions at all just about the whole just thought process of how you really start getting this thing going, and it's so much more than just making it. And so I want to just make sure I'm answering all the questions, helping you all, and ask me anything down below in the comments so that we can keep the conversation going. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.